to introduce it, or do I start off?
Everyone else is introduced.
Okay. Are you recording it? Okay. So my name is Isobel and I'm going to be doing my research project outcome presentation on youth patterns in alcohol and drugs. In South Australia, 19.9% of young people aged 14 to 18 consume alcohol on more than one occasion every month. 16.1% of these young people have consumed an illicit drug such as marijuana, ecstasy and cocaine on more than one occasion in 1 month. These statistics are increasing. South Australia is becoming a drug-hungry nation, and the demand for the illicit substances is at an all-time high. This demand is predominantly being driven by young people. But why is this a problem? Why should adults care about young people using these substances? Teens are just having fun when they take these substances, right? Wrong. Teen drug use is the 4th largest killer of young people in South Australia, with 15% of all teen deaths caused by consumption of alcohol or illicit substances. Not only this, but alcohol and drug consumption has accounted for 30% of road deaths, 44% of alcohol injuries, 34% of falls and drownings, 12% of suicides, and approximately 12,500 hospitalizations, both chronic and acute, in South Australia each year. So, as you can see, alcohol and drugs are not all fun and games, and certainly not for teenagers. But how can we prevent this? How can we prevent this influx of teenagers who are participating in risky behaviour and consuming alcohol and drugs? First, we need to discuss why this influx is occurring in South Australia and consider the factors that are influencing young people's decisions. So, what are the effects of drug and alcohol? Are they different? Yes, they are different, but only slightly. According to the Australian government, alcohol causes a decrease in anxiety and motor skills, euphoria, lowered reaction times, decreased inhibition, impaired memory, periods of memory loss or blackouts, problems with thinking and concentrating, slurred speech, blurry vision, difficulty with balancing and mood swings. Effects of illicit substances, such as ecstasy, according to the Australian government, include euphoria, false feelings and feelings of warmth, mood swings, difficulty concentrating, and creative outbursts. Whilst the effects of drugs and alcohol are similar, I had to determine whether young people preferred the effects of alcohol or drugs and which one they would choose to take if price and availability was not included. I could not answer this question definitely because of ethical reasons, as if I asked this question to a young person who is taking illicit substances, I might get them in trouble and I'm putting myself at risk. However, an online article that I analysed featured a 20-year-old girl who was addicted to both drugs and alcohol, and she stated that drugs gave a better high and that she would prefer drugs over alcohol if she was going on a night out. The interview that I analysed also supported the following data that I found. Australia consumes the most ecstasy in the world, with 3% of all Australians being monthly users of ecstasy. In 2013, 10% of people in their 20s had consumed ecstasy at least once, and in 2014, that number jumped to 20%. So, while ecstasy use in Australia is at an all-time high, alcohol consumption is actually decreasing. The graph on the screen shows that drinking in Australia in the past month has decreased 26.2%, and drinking in the past week has decreased 19.6%. So, ecstasy use is increasing and alcohol use is decreasing. But what are the reasons for this? In an online interview that I analysed with a youth alcohol and drug counsellor, she said that teens take drugs for many reasons, including peer pressure and because they think that consuming drugs and alcohol is cool and fun. Other reasons that young people consume alcohol include ways to deal with family and personal issues and because they are addicted to alcohol and drug consumption. However, I do not think that these reasons are a strong enough influence to affect the increase in youth drug consumption, so there must be other reasons. Another factor that I considered was the possible sources for alcohol and drugs, because legally people under 18 cannot purchase alcohol themselves, so someone else must be sourcing their alcohol. Illicit drugs are illegal to purchase for anyone, so it was harder to definitively define young people's sources. For alcohol, according to the Australian government website, most young people, 64%, said they obtained their alcohol from friends or acquaintances. Around 26% said that their parents bought it for them, and 10% said that they bought it themselves or it was bought for them by a brother or sister. Whilst there are no statistics for drug use, it can be assumed that the results are similar, with the addition of drug dealers and friends who are drug dealers. These statistics are not surprising as there are a connection between the sources of alcohol and drugs and the places in which they are consuming alcohol and drugs, which I will explore now. So where are young people consuming alcohol and drugs? In 2009, a study showed that young people aged 16 to 17 are consuming illicit substances and alcohol at private parties at 41%, at friends' houses at 28%, in their own homes at 22%, in licensed premises at 7%, and in public places at 2%. So, the statement that alcohol and drugs are mainly consumed at parties is correct. This also correlates with the increase in the drug use of ecstasy, as ecstasy is most commonly used at parties and 41% of all teens consume alcohol and drugs at parties. Ecstasy is South Australia's drug of choice. 60% of South Australian drug users say that their drug of choice is ecstasy, and 90% of ecstasy users say that ecstasy in Australia is easy to obtain. In South Australia, 40% of ecstasy users do so weekly or even more frequently, compared with 25% nationally. It was also found that straight Australian teen drug users were more likely than the rest of the country to take it in larger doses. Ecstasy is also coincidentally young people's most used drugs and is most used at parties. This means that young people are the people who are driving the demand for ecstasy in South Australia. So why is there an increase in drug use and not alcohol use? A possible answer that I had to consider was price. On average, a teenager in Australia working minimum wage for 15 hours a week will earn $150 a week. So I posed the question, can teenagers in South Australia afford to buy alcohol and drugs? And my answer is inconclusive, as many teenagers are in different situations, but the short answer is no, because teenagers have to afford other things such as petrol and cannot afford to buy alcohol. However, drug prices in South Australia are becoming lower, as a single ecstasy tablet in Adelaide can cost as low as $7 per tablet, which can last many teenagers for a whole night of partying. However, as drug prices decrease, alcohol prices are actually increasing due to the numerous taxes that are being applied to alcoholic beverages. Taxes applied to alcohol include the wet tax for wine, the customs tax, and the biggest tax, the excise tax, which increases the price of alcohol up to 84.51% for some spirits. So, the price of alcohol in Australia is increasing, the price of drugs are decreasing, which has been proven. So the question now is the price of alcohol the most influencing factor on the patterns of teen drug use? And is it causing the rise in ecstasy use? And the answer is yes, however there are other contributing factors. For a cheaper price, teens are able to get close to the same effects as alcohol for less money, and in some cases get better side effects. Price is also a driving factor because many teens cannot afford to purchase alcohol and they can purchase ecstasy. However, there are other influencing factors including the influence of peers and peer pressure and for personal reasons. But it cannot be denied that the increasing price of alcohol in South Australia is contributing to the increase of drug use such as ecstasy among young people.